My name is Natalie Walker. 1 year ago, I was thrown out of my childhood home by my own father. And not because I did something wrong, but because I was blamed for something I didn't do. My younger sister set me up, and instead of asking questions or even giving me a chance to explain, my father believed her instantly. This isn't a story about revenge in the way people usually expect. No, I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't fight back in the heat of the moment. I simply walked away. And that decision changed my life. You see, I was the one who held everything together in that family. I paid the bills, covered the rent, made sure my sister's tuition was paid. I was doing all the behind-the-scenes work that no one seemed to notice until I was gone. This story matters because far too many of us find ourselves in roles where we give and give, hoping that one day someone will see our worth. But what happens when they never do? What happens when the very people you sacrificed for decide you're the villain in their story? If you've ever felt taken for granted, misunderstood, or used by the people who were supposed to love you the most, then I hope you'll stay with me. Because this story is not just mine, it might be yours too. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud, it's quietly walking away and building the life they never thought you could have. For years, I was the invisible glue holding my family together. I was the one making sure the rent was paid on time, the lights stayed on, the internet didn't get cut, and that my little sister Megan had everything she needed for school. None of it was easy. I worked long hours at a local marketing firm and picked up freelance work on the weekends just to make ends meet. Most days, I barely had enough left for myself. I skipped lunches, ignored the holes at my shoes, and told myself that it was okay, that it was worth it, because I loved them. But love, real love, should be a two-way street. Looking back now, I realize it never was. My dad, Roger, was never great with money. After Mom passed, he became withdrawn and reckless. He'd spend without thinking, and then act surprised when the account was empty. As for Megan, she was only 17, but she acted like the world owed her something. New clothes, new phone, new everything, and somehow I always found a way to make it work. I never told them how much I was contributing. I never asked for recognition. I just wanted peace. I thought that if I kept everything running smoothly, we'd all be okay. I believed that maybe, just maybe, they'd see how hard I was trying. But they never did. To them, it just happened. The bills paid themselves, the groceries appeared. Megan's school fees were magically taken care of. I remember one time Megan complained about the Wi-Fi being slow, and my dad snapped at me like it was my fault. Not a single thank you, not once. I didn't do it for the thanks though. I did it because I thought that was what love looked like: sacrifice, patience, showing up even when no one asked you to. I thought I was being strong. And maybe I was, but strength without boundaries is just self-destruction in disguise. Now, I can see that clearly. But back then, all I knew was that my family was my responsibility. I didn't see myself as a daughter or a sister anymore. I was a provider, a problem solver, and a safety net they never asked for, but never stopped depending on. That's why what happened next hurt so deeply. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the fact that after everything I had given, they didn't hesitate to believe the worst about me. They never saw what I did for them. They only noticed me when they decided I was the problem. It happened on a Thursday. I had just come home from a long day at work. My back ached, my feet were sore, and all I wanted was to sit down and breathe for a moment. But the second I stepped through the front door, I knew something was wrong. My father stood up from the couch with a look on his face I had never seen before, his eyes filled with anger, his jaw clenched. My sister Megan was right beside him, arms folded, wearing this smug little expression like she had won something. "I can't believe you would do this to us, Natalie," Dad said, his voice shaking. I froze. "Do what?" Megan stepped forward and held up a few papers. "Don't pretend like you don't know. I found these in Dad's room. Bank withdrawals. You've been stealing money from his account." My heart dropped. "What are you talking about?" I asked, reaching for the papers, but Dad yanked them away before I could look. "I don't want to hear it," he shouted. "You've been lying to us, using us. You think we're fools?" I stood there, stunned. I had never touched his account. In fact, I was the one putting money into it every month to keep things afloat. Megan knew that. She had seen me transfer money. I had told her more than once that I was covering the gap. And yet here she was, setting me up. Lying. I turned to her, searching her face for any hint of guilt. But there was nothing. Just that same satisfied smile. "Dad, please," I tried again. "I've never taken anything from you." "Get out," he snapped. "You're not welcome here anymore." Just like that. No conversation. No questions. No space for truth. It was like everything I had done meant absolutely nothing. Every late night I stayed up calculating bills. Every morning I went to work sick, just to make sure Megan had her tuition covered. It didn't matter. One lie was all it took to erase years of sacrifice. I stood frozen for a second, like my brain couldn't catch up to what was happening. You heard him, Megan added, with a shrug. Just leave. I looked at my dad one last time, hoping to see even the slightest doubt in his eyes. But there was none. Just anger, just disappointment in a daughter he didn't even bother to understand. And so I walked to the door. My hands were shaking, my face was burning. My heart felt like it had been yanked out of my chest. I had given everything to that household, every piece of myself. And now I was being thrown away like I was nothing. But what they didn't realize in that moment was that they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Because from that point forward, I was done. I was finished being the one they leaned on without ever acknowledging. They didn't kick out the problem. They kicked out the solution. And without me, everything was about to fall apart. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't beg anyone to take me back or try to explain myself one more time. I just walked. It was cold and I didn't even have a coat on, but I didn't care. The silence felt like a break from all the noise I had carried for so long. I called a friend, Jasmine, someone who had always told me, "You give too much to people who don't give anything back." She told me to come over, no questions asked. I slept on her couch that night, and in the morning, something inside me shifted. I picked up my phone, opened my banking app, and one by one, I began canceling everything. The rent payment for the house, gone. The automatic electricity payment, canceled. Water, gas, internet, all of it. Even the recurring transfer for Megan's school tuition. I shut it all down. They thought I was stealing money? Fine. Let them see what happens when the real source of their stability disappears. I didn't owe them anything anymore. At first, it felt surreal. After years of watching every dollar to keep our household from falling apart, I suddenly had nothing to manage but my own life. There was fear, yes, uncertainty, but beneath all that was something new: freedom. No more living paycheck to paycheck for people who never said thank you. No more covering for my father's carelessness. No more playing mother, father, and sister all at once. By Monday morning, the messages started. Dad, we need to talk. I ignored it. That afternoon, Megan texted, "Did you cancel the electricity bill? The power got cut off." I smiled. "Oh, they noticed." The next day, Dad wrote again. "The landlord says rent wasn't paid. Did you do something?" No, I didn't do something. I stopped doing everything. By Wednesday, the phone calls began. I let them go to voicemail. I didn't want to hear their voices. I didn't want another excuse or false accusation. Thursday brought a long, angry voice message from Megan. "You're so selfish. You left and didn't even think about how this would affect us. The school won't let me back until the tuition is paid. Dad is freaking out. You need to fix this." I laughed. Out loud. Fix it. They told me to leave. They threw me out without hesitation. Now they expected me to continue paying for everything. No. I was done being their invisible wallet. I sipped coffee in Jasmine's tiny kitchen. Sunlight coming through the window. I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. They had kicked me out thinking they were punishing me. But all they really did was set me free. And now, for the first time in my adult life, I was going to start choosing myself. Without me, the house began to fall apart quickly and painfully. By the end of the week, they were sitting in the dark. The power company doesn't wait long when a bill goes unpaid. No lights, no heat, no internet. Megan's school fees were overdue, and just like that, she was locked out of her online classes and barred from attending lectures in person. The rent wasn't paid either, and the landlord, who had always dealt with me, wasn't nearly as patient when he had to deal with my father directly. 2 weeks later, they were hit with an eviction notice. That house, the one I had kept afloat through every crisis, was no longer theirs. With nowhere else to go, they ended up crashing at a distant cousin's house across town. I heard about it from a friend of a friend. Small towns have a way of sharing stories whether you want to hear them or not. Megan, who once rolled her eyes every time I suggested she be more responsible, was now hunting for part-time jobs. No more weekend shopping trips. No more designer clothes. Her social media went from flashy outfits and coffee selfies to long periods of silence. She didn't have much to show off anymore. And Dad, he looked like a ghost of the man he used to be. I ran into him once at the grocery store. He was hunched over, staring at a can of soup like he was doing math in his head. No steaks, no snacks, just the bare minimum. He saw me, and for a second, it looked like he might say something, but he didn't. He just gave me a small, almost shameful nod and turned away. That moment stuck with me not because I felt pity, but because it made everything real. The consequences had finally reached them, and they were starting to understand what life without me really looked like. This wasn't revenge. I wasn't out to destroy anyone. I didn't have to lift a finger to make them suffer. All I did was stop helping. And sometimes, that's enough. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away and let the truth do the rest. The first real conversation came 2 weeks after I left. My phone rang while I was having breakfast with Jasmine. I recognized the number, my father's. I let it ring for a while before answering. I wasn't curious to hear what he had to say. I just wanted to hear how he would say it. "Natalie," he said, his voice low and tired. "We need to talk." "About what?" I replied casually. "Don't play games," he snapped, but there was no fire behind it this time. Just frustration, defeat. Megan's school kicked her out. The landlord gave us a notice. The bills, they're overdue. I didn't know you were the one paying for everything. I let the silence stretch. Now he knew. Finally. Come home, he said after a moment. "Let's talk." I took a slow sip of my coffee, staring out the window. A few weeks ago I would have dropped everything to hear those words. I would have rushed home, desperate to explain myself, desperate to be understood. But that girl didn't exist anymore. Oh, so now you want to talk? I said quietly. Dad sighed. "Natalie, don't do this. I didn't know the truth. If I had, but you didn't care to find out, did you?" Silence. And there it was, the real answer. He had no defense, no excuse, because he knew I was right. He knew he had chosen to believe a lie without asking a single question, and now he was dealing with the consequences. I didn't hang up. I didn't yell. I just let him sit in it. Let the truth fill the space between us. A few days later, I ran into him again at the store. He looked thinner, older, like the stress had taken something out of him that he couldn't get back. I just wanted to say I was wrong. He told me. "I should have trusted you. I was blinded by what Megan said. I should have asked. I should have known." I looked him in the eye and said, "I was your daughter too. But you threw me away like I was nothing." He dropped his gaze. That night, I got one last message from him. Date 23 p.m. "I know I don't deserve it. But if you ever decide to forgive me, just know the door is open." I stared at it for a long moment. Then I did the only thing that gave me peace. I deleted it. Then I blocked his number. I didn't need to go back. I didn't need closure. What I needed was a life that didn't revolve around proving my worth to people who never valued it in the first place. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconnection. Sometimes it simply means letting go and choosing yourself. Exactly 1 year later, I stood by the window of my new apartment, sunlight pouring in across a kitchen table that was finally mine. No one else's bills. No one else's mess. Just peace. After I left, something incredible happened. My life got better. Not overnight, but steadily, surely. Without the financial burden of supporting 3 people, I was finally able to save. I upgraded my job, started taking online courses, and even launched a small side business making handmade candles. It started slow, but within months, I had a steady stream of customers. For the first time, I was building something that belonged entirely to me. I used to wake up every day feeling exhausted, like I was drowning in everyone else's needs. Now I wake up with clarity. I make my own coffee, light a candle from my own shop, and sit down to plan my day. I don't rush anymore. I don't beg for approval. I don't walk on eggshells in my own home. I didn't just recover from what they did to me, I thrived. I never reached out to my father or Megan, and they never reached out again. But in a town like ours, stories travel. I heard things. Megan still hadn't kept a steady job. She bounced between part-time work, still trying to get people to feel sorry for her. But her charm had worn thin. People knew what she did. And my father? Last I heard, he was still living in that cramped apartment with peeling paint and a space heater that barely worked. One afternoon I saw Megan standing at a bus stop. She looked tired, worn down, bitter. She spotted me across the street. Our eyes met for a brief second. She hesitated like she wanted to say something. Maybe apologize, maybe ask for help. But I didn't wait to find out. I turned, walked away, and didn't look back. Because the truth is, I didn't need revenge. I had already won. They lost the one person who held everything together, and I found the one thing they never gave me, myself. If there's one thing I've learned, It's this being needed is not the same as being valued. Sometimes, the greatest act of love you can give yourself is walking away from the people who only see you as useful, not as worthy. I don't tell this story for sympathy. I tell it for anyone who's ever felt invisible in their own home. You're not alone. And you don't have to stay where you're not seen. If this story spoke to you, leave a comment. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And most of all, choose yourself, always.